Thanks to NOFA for inviting me. My name's Andrew Corbin. I did my master's at Cornell, and I worked with a lot of New York farmers in my 10 years in New York State, so glad to be back here. After that, I went to Michigan State University for 10 years. I was managing the long-term ecological research project in row crop agriculture there at Michigan State. That's where I did my PhD, and we had a long-term organic system in that project. So that's what got me interested, and that's what I did. I did my PhD on transitioning of organic cropping systems. So once I got the PhD, I got the position at Washington State University, where I am now. And I'm an extension faculty, so I'm not in the Pullman campus. I'm over in the Seattle area on the west side, what we call the wet side. And I'm the Ag and Natural Resources faculty there for Snohomish County, which is the first county north of Seattle. So here I am, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit here and talk about biodegradable plastic mulch and its suitability for organic production. Make this work. Nothing's happening. First of all, why do we use plastic mulch? Does anybody use plastic mulch in their production system? Well, there's a lot of good reasons why we use it. Weed control is the #1 reason, and that's why we're here today. The previous two speakers alluded to it's consistently the #1 problem for organic farmers. That's weed management. Also, there's plenty of research to show that it conserves soil moisture, increases yield. There's lots of evidence to that fact. This is slow. Come on, baby. There we go. Modifies soil temperature, and often, depending on the crop, can shorten the time of harvest, so you can actually extend your season using plastic. Lots of good reasons to use plastic mulch, and this is why we do it. For some reason I have to push this at least twice every time. Okay. What's wrong with plastic mulch? Well, feedstocks used for production of plastic mulch are petroleum-based. They last one season. Why this doesn't work?
Were you having that problem?
There's some recycling issues associated. I'm pushing the right button, it's just sticky. So those of you who use it, are you able to recycle? It's very difficult. Most regions have minimal recycling capability, and in most cases it just doesn't happen. Disposal costs are very high, and not just for the grower. I mean, we've shown that it's for the grower, it's at least $100 an acre. But you know, you think about the other costs associated with disposal, the ecosystem services that you lose. There's a study that shows in 2004, 140,000 tons of plastic mulch was disposed of in the U.S. alone. Labor intensive because it is available for certified use, but of course you have to pull it all up and dispose of it, so that adds to your labor costs. It's not going to degrade in the landfill if that's where it ends up. And we did find that a lot of farmers are going to burn this stuff on site. It does happen, and there's a lot of negative impacts associated with burning plastic. So what about this biodegradable plastic mulch? Has anybody tried using that? Okay, we'll talk a little bit about this. It's designed to function like the polyethylene mulch. As far as installation, same tools that you use to install it. But theoretically, it biodegrades in the field, so you don't have to pull it up at the end. You can till it in, eliminating your disposal costs and reducing your labor. Have you guys tilled it in? Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that. But as far as the negative impacts, there are no data out there to show that there are none, and that's what we're working on, okay? So, what is biodegradability? Is there a standard for biodegradability? Well, the ASTM defines biodegradability by the system of disposal. So whether you're composting, an anaerobic digester in the soil that we're trying to do here, till it into the soil, or in marine environments. Also time, half a year, a whole year, a year and a half are considered optimal depending on your system. And then the key is complete microbial utilization of carbon. So the only thing left is supposed to be carbon, as in CO2, and water, and whatever microbial biomass has taken up, nothing else, according to the American Society of Testing Materials. So what is this stuff made of? Well, it's bio-based polymers. Most of the stuff that you're going to find out there that's available commercially is polylactic acid based, which is produced from plant starch. There's also polyhydroxyalcohonates. Can anybody say that big word, PHA? Or some combination of the two. Okay, PHA generally is polyesters produced from bacteria. But bio-based is the key. Now, why are U.S. farmers not able to use these under current certified standards? Well, the National Organic Program standards don't allow it. So if you're using it right now for certified production, you're not supposed to. And that's because they cannot show that these particular biodegradable mulches that are available today don't contain some petroleum-derived additives to get this process to work, or certain resins. Also, much of the feedstocks that go into the starch for the PLA are GMO crops. And there's no way to test whether or not in the final product, in the plastic mulch, there's no way to test for GMO DNA. Like, for example, if it was Roundup Ready corn, how do you test for that? Because you can't test, then they're a little bit leery to accept it. Actually, the GMO issue for the NOP program, is anybody on the NOP board in here?
I work for the National Organic Program.
Okay, so the GMO issue doesn't seem to be as big a deal as synthetic additives. Because if you think about it, we can use Roundup Ready corn manure to put on our crops. It's kind of the same idea. And then there is no trace of any, there's no way you can pick out any GMO corn out of a piece of biodegradable plastic like you might be able to out of manure. But that is, because you can't test for it, it's an issue that's up in the air.
Excuse me, the main issue is that no one's put in a petition for it. That's what we're waiting for.
We're getting there, thank you. And of course, there's the biodegradability issue that it must completely biodegrade and not have any negative byproducts that are unacceptable under the program. Okay, back up. Oh, there we go. So I'm involved. This is just one of the hats I wear with this big USDA SCRI, Specialty Crop Research Initiative project, multi-university, multi-state project looking at some of these issues of biodegradability, and it's not simply about organic management. That's one of the aspects, but it's a big project involving Washington State, University of Tennessee, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and Western Washington. I want to acknowledge some of my co-authors, Carol Miles from Washington State University, one of her graduate students, Jeremy Cohen, and Doug Hayes from UTK, and another one up there that's not up there is John Dorgan, who's one of our resource advisors. He's from Colorado School of Mines. So big project, we're in our third year looking at biodegradable mulches inside and outside of high tunnels. Okay, so what we're doing is trying to better understand. It's the biggest project, it's the only project going on right now in the US that's looking at the stuff of the biodegradation of plastic mulch. How does it work? What is the likelihood of any toxic byproducts? What are the impacts on the soil and the plant health? And then, come on. Maybe I'm too far away. There we go. So a complete life cycle analysis, cradle to grave analysis of these systems inside and outside of high tunnels. Also, bottom line, we have a economic team from Washington State. How producers adopt technology, similar to what Brian was talking about. We have a big stakeholder group that consists of growers, manufacturers of biodegradable mulch, researchers, extension people. We conduct focus groups, we conduct field days, and try to figure out, how are growers looking into this, and how are some of these products developed? Can we have an influence on what goes into these systems? For example, for not programmed to make them acceptable. And then how we share information. So, we have a big team of researchers that meet annually at the different universities to talk about it, but we also have our resource and stakeholder group, and we have the field days to share our information and get feedback from the growers. So experimental design, this is a randomized complete block, 4 reps, 3 locations in the US, Western Washington, Tennessee, Knoxville, and Texas, Lubbock. Has anyone been to Lubbock, Texas? All right, they use high tunnels to protect crops from blowing sand. Little different reason for why we use it. Open field and high tunnels, so those 4 reps are in and out of tunnels. Tomatoes, the same cultivar across the 3 locations with the biodegradable mulch, 3-foot by 14-foot beds, and we are managing these with organic practices, just pretending we're being certified, all but the biodegradable mulch. The treatments are spun bond. Anybody heard that term before? Spun bond, PLA. So it's kind of like a way of manufacturing a fabric where the strands are kind of sprayed into a matrix. This is an experimental developed product that we did just for the project, developed in Germany, and then a couple of commercially available biodegradable mulches, Biobag, Biotello, both made from this matter dye, which is a PLA-based product. Paper mulch, 100% cellulose and certified for organic use. black polyethylene, the normal 1 mil stuff, also available for certified organic use as long as you pick it up every year. And then a bare ground, no mulch control. Okay, I'm just going to show a little bit of data. There's lots of data, and I'll show you how to get to that towards the end of the talk. Oh, the sun's really coming in, but the blue bars, this definitely shows the need. This is Western Washington data, definitely shows the need for high tunnels. The red bars indicate high tunnel number of tomatoes per plot, and the blue is outside of the tunnels. I don't know if you can see this. Can't see it at all, but the first one, Biobag and Biotello are pretty similar outside of the tunnels, with a little bit better production inside for the Biotello, and not really that different from the polyethylene normal black plastic. And that's number of tomatoes. This is the weight of tomatoes, where Biobag and Biotello do a little switch in the tunnels, but they're really not that different. And again, pretty much the same as black plastic. Okay, so on biodegradability, we have a buried mesh bag study, and we do this inside and outside of tunnels. What we do is bury these bags with pieces of the mulch, and we look at them at 6 months, at 1 year, at 1.5 years, at 2 years, etc., etc. The Spun Bond PLA, that was the experimental product that we had made, we saw no reduction after 1 year, no reduction in size, and that's this stuff down here. The commercial products, oops, wrong way, sorry. Biobag, Texas had 84% reduction, and this is just aerial visual reduction in size. Tennessee, 15%, these are averages across reps. Washington State, 0%, and this is after 1 year in the ground. Similar kind of results, except in Tennessee is much greater disintegration. In Washington, that 22% actually only represents one of the reps that was, really high degradation, and the rest were none. Okay. Cellulose, 100% degraded in Texas and Washington, and in Tennessee is 81%. Okay, just to show that we are collecting data at intervals. This is from the buried mesh bags. I just want to show you that we do have statistical data on these, and it's continuing. The bottom is the black plastic and the Spun Bond PLA, which didn't degrade at all, and the other three are the cellulose, the Biotello, and the Biobag. So I really wanted you to see this slide. The sun's kind of blocking some of it out, but basically with the mesh bag study, we take the same amount of soil inside the mesh bag on either side of a piece of mulch. Okay, we bury that in the ground. Take it out at different intervals. It's a grueling process if anyone's ever done buried bag studies. Pulling these little pieces out of those bags puts a lot of graduate students to work. But the two scanning electron micrograph photos I have here, the one on the left is from the Biotello, the Matterby product, PLA based. There's white arrows that are showing that there's breakdown that you can't see from the naked eye starting to happen, so it's cracking at a microscopic level. But there's also, wow, cool, thank you.
How big
big time. Not a little bit of an angle now, but that's much better, thanks. So the green arrow shows an imprint of a soil nematode, you know, getting into that system. And then on the right side is a scanning electron micrograph of the cellulose, which breaks down pretty readily. It's just inundated with bacterial colonies. And this is, I believe this is after 1 year. So there's lots of data to share, and I encourage you to go look. Right now, year 2, which was last season, is complete. Data are being analyzed and slowly being entered. Preliminary reports. We have an internal team website that we communicate with each other and have tons of data going back and forth. So it's really messy. We don't want the public to see that. What we did was put a public website together where, you know, we share this information with anybody who wants to go see it, and you can see all the results on yields and economic data from all the 3 locations at this website. So I guess I'm done with questions and discussion.
Thanks.